There has been a discussion on this channel as to why somebody would pay ultimately more for a bicycle outfitted with an electric battery, possibly a generator. Why go through all of these problems instead of getting just a small motorcycle like a mini moto, a small scooter, something like a Vespa or a Honda Monkey? Why would anybody choose the bike? In this video, I'm going to explain to you why I have made my choice and why so many other people are also preferring a bicycle, as expensive as it is, with the battery, generator, whatever it has, or even an add-on motor to a small motorcycle. I'm going to start out with the bike selection, and I don't want to go very cheap. Yes, you can get a very cheap bicycle. This channel is dedicated to the top of the line small wheel offerings, but you could buy a $500 bike at Walmart or wherever and put a battery on it, put a cheap kit on it. The whole thing would not cost you, especially with the gasoline, something like a 4-stroke kit, which do exist. You could get it done way under than $1,000, and you would have basically a gasoline operated bike that could go the distance and could be refueled anywhere. But that's not the topic of this channel, so I'm gonna go all out on this. I mean, not all out, but take like a medium priced Moulton bike. Moulton is already the priciest of the small wheel upright bikes, and that's because it's also the best. I'm not gonna go for the most expensive ones. You could go, if you wanted something with a relatively fat, comfortable tire, then you could do this. Is almost 12,000 British pounds. In US dollars, we are talking at least 17,000 US dollars. So I'm not even going to go there. How about this 4,000 pound comfortable city or off-road touring kind of a thing? In US dollars, this is going to be 6K. What can you get? So what's the price comparison? Like if you wanted to get a motorcycle at that price, you could certainly get a Piaggio, which is the same thing as the Vespa, but with a much cheaper plastic body in far less aftermarket support. You can get a 50cc for the price of a decent Brompton bicycle, really. But even the 150 is actually cheaper. Although for this price, you could get like a basic Brompton electric. I think the Brompton electric is about the same price, maybe a little bit more. And that should give you a 50 or 60 mile range. So the question is, what about other motorcycles? If we are comparing a classy handmade, all metal, not cheap plastic crap, not machine made bicycle to a small motorcycle, then we should be making a comparison to some of the best in the motorcycle world. And I'm talking about small bikes, obviously. So a Vespa is not going to be any cheaper than getting a Moulton. And of course, the Moulton, if you add a battery, a kit, minimum $1,000, a generator with a trailer, another $1,000. So you're up at 8K. And here is the Honda Monkey. This is a mini Moto. This is probably the closest thing to a powered bicycle that you can get. And it's really cheap. It's a little over 4,000, although now they are attaching all kinds of charges. Some of these bikes require a destination charge, and on top of it, a shipping charge. So you're going to end up closer to $5,000. But this whole mini Moto doesn't even cost as much as the Moulton bike that we looked at. And this Moulton bike is definitely not the most expensive, far from it. But it's a good bike. It's well made, sort of average accessories. It even has a disc brake, at least in the rear. So it's not bad. But overall, the motorcycles are cheaper to buy for the most part. But here's the catch. Once you buy your Alex mountain bike that's going to last for a lifetime, through a high quality motorbike like the Monkey, the Vespa. You can see old monkeys I have seen on my recent trip to Asia, both the Vespa and the Monkey from the 70s. Those are half century old bikes and they are still on the road. So, yeah, you can get a lot of quality for a little bit less price upfront if you go with the Vespa or the Monkey or something classy like that. But don't forget, these things are going to consume a lot more energy, especially compared to the insane efficiency rate of a battery. A gasoline engine, even a smaller one, is just not going to compare. During the life of the motorcycle, it's actually going to cost you a good deal more money. Not only that, but to get into places, to get in and out of New York, I'm showing you the tolls on the George Washington Bridge. Check this out. A motorcycle, no matter how tiny, a mini moto, a small scooter with a 50cc engine, is charged almost as much as a bus. The bus pays $15.50. The mini moto is charged $13. The mini moto weighs less than 5% of a bus. But who cares? So you can clearly see that the government is not liking bikes, not motorbikes. But you can get on the same bridge for free on your molten bike or any kind of bicycle, anything that is regarded as a bicycle. In fact, if you have a noisy generator or a motor mounted on that bike, you can switch it off and just pedal across, and nobody's going to pay attention. You're going to be silent. So there's a lot of expense added to owning a motorcycle. You also have to register it, you have to buy insurance, and in many cases, you will have to park it because you cannot bring it inside the apartment or house. Now, an honorable mention should be given to the Minimoto, to the Honda Monkey, the Grum, and a few others that are on the market, because I have spoken to people who have been able to bring it inside the apartment with the knowledge of the landlord. So some places would tolerate a motorcycle this tiny. And if you have a decent freight elevator or even just a bigger elevator, then you might be able to bring that in. But don't bet on it because many landlords are just not going to allow it. And in this case, I sort of even understand it because the gasoline inside the tank is flammable. So you could have a serious fire or the whole place blowing up. Now, there are landlords who are really scared of even the battery because of all these hyped up news pieces about how the batteries have exploded. So far, I have not seen a single one of them creating a serious fire unless owned by a delivery man who was trying to do something, either overvolting it, probably overvolting in most cases, or there is a way to charge it more than the 90 or 95% allowed by the controller. So in most cases, they are doing something. So batteries are really not as dangerous as fuel in a tank. So an honorable mention should be given to that as far as storage is concerned. But in most cases, you will have to pay for a garage. If you leave it on the street, it's going to be stolen or knocked over in no time. And then let's compare to how you can ride. You can get on the greenway with a bicycle. With a motorcycle, some people have tried it with the 50cc, even the 100cc. I doubt, I've never seen, maybe once I've seen something as big as 150cc on the greenway. It's clearly not legal. You are taking a risk even in New York if you do that. And just look at the infrastructure. I'm just showing the New York area, but most urban areas are now like this. The dark green lines are the protected areas for the bike. Either you have a separate bike lane, typically protected with some kind of a railing or space or something like that, even if it's in the middle of the street. And I'll show you some of what's available. So it is like that. They have this parking lane, and That means it's very difficult for a car to dart over. And they even have a little extra space here because people used to suddenly open the door into the face of people riding by. So you are pretty safe. And of course, there are many other places. You could be inside a park, on a greenway or something. It's really a lovely place to ride a bicycle. You definitely cannot bring a motorcycle or motorized vehicle in here. In fact, I believe the cars are now forbidden at all times. I think even during the rush hour from Central Park. The bicycle gives you access to a lot in the city where there is congestion, where there is far more of a chance of somebody knocking you over on your motorcycle. I actually personally know somebody, a woman who moved from New York to Miami and got onto a scooter, ended up in an accident, and had to have one of her legs amputated. This can happen on the bicycle, but it is not very likely. Look at the infrastructure, even going into the suburbs, even going 70, 80 miles away from New York. And, these green lanes just illustrate how many places you have. You even have places over the bridge. You don't have to pay. I go back and forth all the time and I don't have to pay. If you're in the car, it's not going to be as much as New York, like the George Washington Bridge, but it's a couple of dollars every time you cross it, I believe, eastbound to New York. It's free to get out of the east side, but you have to pay to go back into it. But then there are all of these big roads with the shoulders on. Some roads have really big shoulders. And once again, the shoulder is not something you can tackle with a motorcycle. It's not legal to get on the shoulder. In fact, years ago when I was on one of them, I ended up getting a nasty ticket for this, for getting on the shoulder with a motorized vehicle. It's definitely not a legal thing. And on the bike, you do have some options. Look at the size of the shoulder. The 9W is a favorite of New York riders. Lots of bicycles out here, especially on the weekend. So you just have far more access and far more free access if you are on the bicycle rather than the motorbike. Not to mention that it is a lot more scenic. Also, helmets. You don't have to wear a helmet on the bike. I think if you go over 20 miles an hour, then you're supposed to wear it, but basically nobody's checking. A lot of people wear them because there's been so much propaganda about it, but you don't really need to wear it. And during the summertime when it's really hot, it can be really uncomfortable to have to wear a helmet. And then there is parking. You can lock a bicycle, even a stand-up e-scooter, to a place like this. If you do this with something that has a license plate on it or something that's supposed to have it, you can get a ticket costing over $100. Of course, you could legally park it in between these cars, but look at how tight they are parking. Most big city centers are like that. Cars have learned to maximize space efficiency and they force their way in. They even rough each other up. They even bump into each other. Do you think they are going to give a damn about your scooter in between the two cars? They will knock you over. I have seen bikes as big as a Honda Goldwing being knocked over in Manhattan. So you are just deluding yourself. And I used to be on gasoline scooters for several years in Manhattan. All of them were either vandalized and stolen or just stolen. And that the third one was my last attempt at having a motorized scooter. It is so much easier to bring your bike inside, and that's why a small wheel, more compact bike is the way to go. But that's just my 10 cents. Then there is an issue of what you're going to do in the winter. If you have a Honda Monkey type mini Moto, there's nothing you can do. You are going to freeze. You can even have medical problems. I personally know somebody who destroyed his shoulder joints via regular riding outside in cold weather. The joints cannot be repaired. He's getting steroid injections every week or every few weeks, whatever. Riding in winter, if you have to ride, then get a scooter, get a heated jacket, a really good jacket, get a skirt, get a tall windshield. It's not a bad solution. The mini bike is hopeless. In the winter, once temperatures drop below 50 degrees, you are going to risk your physical health. On the other hand, on the bike, you generate a tremendous amount of body heat. So long, I typically wear ski trousers for the winter riding and just a decent jacket. Doesn't have to be that warm. It's basically there to break up the wind. And you can get a helmet. You can wear a helmet. It's in the winter when I like wearing mine, and I have a more serious helmet with windshield and everything. You can even get bicycle helmets that are heated, so you do not have any fogging issues. And here is a Moulton with a full fairing, a pretty tall fairing that you can buy. And even though the Birdie and the Brompton and other bikes I recommend do not have a joint to attach the fairing specifically, you can figure out a way to attach this very same fairing. Not to mention that you can make your own fairing or buy a standard scooter fairing. Amazon is full of them. In the winter, compared to the mini moto, I definitely prefer the bicycle. Compared to the scooter, okay, you do get some options. It's not too bad. A lot of people in Paris, France, use these kind of scooters with the skirt and the big windshield in winter. It's an okay solution, but Paris is far more tolerant. Their parking rules are far more tolerant for mopeds and scooters. And that's the same thing everywhere in Southern Europe and in the Far East as well. Southeast Asia, even in Tokyo, they let you park on the sidewalk, on the street, not in the US. So this is pretty much something that is government policy in many areas in the US and also in Europe, in the colder part of Europe, not in Italy or Spain, because they have a scooter culture there, a motorcycle culture. But in the Nordic countries, they also do the same thing. They build greenways and protected areas for the bicycle and don't give a damn about the motorcycle. So these are issues to consider. I think that for some people, not even a mini moto, but a little scooter with the skirt and everything could solve problems. There are also three-wheel but much more expensive scooters that provide stability on ice and snow in the winter. Are they as good as a velomobile? Probably I would prefer the velomobile in those cases as well. But here I have tried to cover some of the considerations you may want to go through if you are considering a motorcycle or bicycle and have this dilemma. Now, some people can afford to have both of them. It's not just a money issue, but it's a headache issue. How much of a headache are you going to put up with? Because if you have something that has to be stored outside, there's going to be lots of problems coming with that. People knocking it over, scratching it up, trying to steal it, sneaking into your backyard. I had a scooter stolen from my backyard, actually. Pay attention to all of these factors and let me know what you think below. This is the end of the video. Make sure to check out the links I have to like, subscribe, share the video, and
I'll be back.